I grew up in the Philippines. I have one sibling, but I lived with my grandparents when I was 4 years old. At first, I lived with my brother. When I was 4 years old, my mother was living with my brother's dad. They fell in love with each other. So later on, things got rough with them. So my mom thought it would be a better idea to give me to another family, and that would be my grandparents. When they gave me to my grandparents, it was at a meeting spot. My grandparents owned a store, and I will never forget that day. It was hard. My grandparents were stranger to me, even though I have seen them a couple of times before. And we went to the store. It was already closed by then. Everything was dark. Whoa, where am I? My grandpa. You know, you see a person and they have this kind of aura in them, this authoritarian aura. And I was holding on close to my mom. I didn't know what was going on. And just when she took my hand slowly away from me, that's when I realized, oh, she was gonna give me away. And I screamed so hard. I was like, no, I was crying and I was hugging her so tight. My step-grandma, she was holding me from the back on my waist, trying to grab me. And my mom, she was just trying to let me go. That was just trauma from the get-go. But the next day, I thought it would feel better. But my grandpa came again with this authoritarian figure here to say, good morning, Grandpa. Good morning, Grandma. Everything was so controlled in that house. That happened right away. No one ever told me or explained to me that when you let out a number two as a child, that it could hurt and that it's normal. So I would wait as a child, I guess, and my step-grandma didn't like it. So I would come home with a dirty underwear and she would feed it to me. Later on in life, my grandparents, they put me in a Catholic private school for girls. That school was also really structured. I mean, I do really love that school because I made some fun memories with a lot of kids. Until now, I am friends with on Facebook. My mom left me when I was 8 years old to Germany. And that was really hard for me too. She met a man in Germany, but she didn't know how hard the abuse was going on. My grandparents never said anything. She would call a couple of times. One time I did tell my mom. It wasn't really telling her. I was crying for help. My grandpa got the idea of putting me in the Philippines. There are these sack of rice. They're like ye tall, like 5 foot tall. And I would fit in those sack of rice. And he thought, if we put her in a sack of rice, put a little hole in it and hang her on a tree, maybe that would make her grades better. But my mom, she coincidentally called that night. I heard she called. So I screamed to the top of my lungs. I was like, help, help, help. And that's when she heard it. And I think that's when she realized something was going on. But I guess she has her own issues with her husband back then in Germany. It's always about punishment in my family. It's like everything I do, somehow they turn something around and make it into my fault. My grandpa, when my brother would come visit, he would let us compete with each other. And most of the time, it's our appearances. See, he was a favorite grandchild. He was light-skinned. I am dark-skinned. In the Philippines, having light-skinned is a very big pride. Like traditionally, it would mean, oh, your family doesn't come from farmers that would burn your skin. So, you're light skinned, you're rich. My grandpa thought I was so ugly. Like I was 9 years old. He said, oh, you can't even be a because you're so ugly. You cannot find a husband because you're so ugly. You cannot even be a maid because You don't know how everything works in the house. You don't amount to anything. You can't even be a mom. My step grandma, she did most of the. My grandpa would just agree with her as he was the head of the family. So my grandma would do the deed when she would find me outside to play with the other kids, because as she said, oh, you cannot make friends with those poor kids because their parents are addicts and you might end up like them. They're bad influence to you. Yada 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 yada. If she would see me outside with them, she would dig her nails in my ears and she would drag me to the gate to our house. Later on, I always thought that my mom, maybe she didn't have a choice because my family is so controlling. Maybe she just wanted to leave. So I was 14 years old when I finally got all my papers done. I don't know if you still, or anybody still remember the Y2K, where around the 2000 they said, oh, it will be the apocalypse. And I just wished, my last wish was to see my mom again, because I thought this will never end. I was locked up sometimes in a place called the underground, in that house where I was like a prisoner, and I would be locked up there for a week. Sometimes they would chain me to a chair because they didn't want me to go out and play with those kids outside. Or I would be sick, and because my grades are so bad, they would still let me go to school with so high of a fever. So I started hurting myself. Started all these scars on my arm. I was 11. I started letting my anger out on myself. I couldn't find another way because who was gonna listen to me? I tried running out of the house, and my mom's half sister, she found me and she drove me back. So I just wanted to see my mom again. And thank God, when I was 14, I came to Germany and I saw her. It wasn't everything I wished for. My mom was really popular in that small town in Germany. She owned a shop. They were a successful couple. They were in the news in that little town, but nobody knew she had 2 children. So when I went there, I had to call her aunt at first. So my mom and I, we had this struggle at first because we didn't have that mother-daughter connection. When I saw my mom, I was just so happy that I didn't want to talk about it at all. I just wanted to be with my mom. And my mom and I both didn't know that I was already struggling with mental illness. So it was really a struggle for us. I never turned my back around after I stepped foot in Germany. Never again. I didn't want to go back there. I couldn't identify myself in the Philippines at all. Everybody called me ugly there because of my skin color. So I made it a mission that one day I will be pretty and I will do everything a girl wanted. And I kind of did. Joined a beauty pageant, became a photo model. I did all those things out of insecurity. I did do it not for myself. When I think about it, I did it all out of desperation, just to prove something to those people. When I finally got out of my grandparents' house, I thought I was gonna finally be happy. I was finally in Germany. I was finally with my mom. I was like, oh my goodness, this is so great. I didn't know it was gonna follow me because of the trauma that I had experienced. I developed a mental illness called borderline personality disorder. And when I got my first child, I got PPP, which is postpartum psychosis. Later on, with my other child, I developed postpartum depression. With my third child, I didn't, as I finally found the right man who was really helpful with my journey with my mental illness. And he really helped me so much. I felt like my shoulders were so heavy this whole time. And I felt like I could breathe. And I told my children, I am very sorry.
I apologize that your mom has been so depressed. I haven't really been here. Now you guys can finally stop worrying about me, because I know that sometimes they worry. They know when their mom is not doing good. And my advice to every parent out there is that when you have children and you are mentally ill, you have to be honest to your children about it. Because when my children knows that, oh, mom is not doing well, let's leave her alone. They go to their rooms, they play their games, they talk to their friends, because they know, okay, let's leave mom alone. Mom needs some time right now. It's better that way, because if you just keep stuff from your children, later they might hesitate to talk to you anymore. They might think, oh, something's wrong with mom. And you don't want that. Learn to say, I am more without feeling guilty, because you deserve that. And if you can cut ties, please do. Because you are just torturing yourself emotionally. I was finally able to move on when I finally confronted my demons. I went live on Facebook and I said, look what you did to a child. You cannot do that to a child. Before, I used to have this hatred towards my grandparents. And then I realized, after I got my closure, I said, I don't even want any of that. All I want for them is just move on with your life. That's it. That's all I want. Just leave me in peace. People always told me, share your story. Maybe there are people out there that are struggling with the same story. And I always thought, no, I feel guilty. I might hurt people. Then I realized, why do I feel guilty about hurting people who hurt me? I was thinking that way because of the thought process in my brain that I still have to overcome, that I'm still working on until now, bit by bit. I'm still working about it. I am working with a psychologist about it. I am taking meds. My family is helping me. They know my triggers. Now my goals is going into child development, if possible. I want to help children to stop developing into an even deeper depression or into a worse mental illness. It's really hard if you don't have the right support. And I know not everybody can afford support. So if I can be the support system for them, or if you can just give a parent maybe a list of things that she can do that could help her, maybe like a 10-minute list that she can do at least, I know that would help out a lot. Definitely. Remember, in us, there's always a child somewhere yearning to be loved. Have a great day.